This is Jack from Naut, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show.
So I've got Gavin and Jack from Naut with me this evening. How's it going, guys, over in, well, you said sunny Bristol?
Yeah, it's good, thank you, mate. We've been lucky. Had a couple of days of not torrential rain, which is well needed, to be honest. Probably not as nice as Barcelona, but it's all right.
And you've got a beast from the east expected as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so they say. I mean, that's
Really?
the old newspaper headline classic, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. This is what the UK need right now. Right. So, it's difficult to avoid you guys at the moment. Everywhere I turn, I'm seeing and hearing you. You've just released your debut album, Hunt. How good is it to be getting this out?
Oh, man, yeah, it's been a long time coming. We started writing it over lockdown, really. So, I mean, feels
Right.
like a lifetime ago. So to finally see that out there, and then the response we've had so far, it's been, more than we could have hoped, I dare say.
Yeah. I mean, is a pandemic album? Was it early in the pandemic, during the pandemic? I mean, is it old news to you now, this album?
A little bit, especially because we've done a lot of the music. Well, we've done all the music videos ourselves, so we've been listening to it a lot and been surrounded by it. And we started writing it just before the pandemic, and then obviously the world changed, and then we sort of thought we'll use the pandemic to our advantage, and so because we didn't obviously have any gig commitments, so we could just spend time, just because it's myself and Gav write everything together, or at least have done for this album. So it was pretty much I don't want to call it a pandemic album because it's not about that necessarily,
No,
but
of course not.
yeah, it afforded us the time and the opportunity to sort of knuckle down and get it out, which was great. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's that kind of quietness you get when there's nothing else going on. There's no distractions. You read sometimes about people going off into some house in the country for 6 months and writing or whatever. It's a similar thing, but enforced.
And it's a time we'll never, ever, hopefully, touch wood, never have again where we have that sort of like precious time to kill. But did you feel that this gave you more time to perfect such a good album, or do you think you just had more time to perfect it, or was it just the right amount?
Yeah, I think it was. It was good because it forced us to just do that. There was no, maybe we can tinker with these songs for live, or maybe we can kind of get down this sort of sidetrack. It was very much, well, if we can get this nailed in this pandemic time and just go over it again and again and again, then we know we'll be in a good spot with it. So yeah, I think it was just like I said, to do away with those distractions. I think it was perfect for us. So we not only got better with the songs, but also our writing process. So that stood us in a really good stead for album 2, I think.
Yeah. I know you've had tracks out before on EP. How different does it feel to have an album out this time? Because there's not many tracks. I think, was it your EP had 5 and this has got 8 tracks? There's not much difference, but how does it feel to have a full album out?
Yeah, it kind of feels like our second album to me anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say that
before. Yeah, because we did an EP and a couple of singles, and that's kind of an album's worth of material. So really, when we've been gigging, it feels like we've been gigging the first album for a while, as it is. So this kind of feels like, it feels like second album territory, even though it's obviously the debut. But yeah,
it's that. But also, there's a certain kind of credence you get with that first album. It's a kind of a bit of an artificial big deal almost, but people do look for it, don't they? Whether that's promoters or press or whatever, there's always that kind of, it's their debut album. So even though, like Jack says, we kind of feel like we've done it a bit before, it's still different because other people treat it differently, even though to us it's a little bit like, okay, well, we're just releasing some songs.
It does feel different though, saying that the songwriting and the sound of it, the production of it, it's a lot more, I think, where I want it to be, is not personally. So it's and obviously having the label behind us for this release, which we didn't have before, makes it feel a bit more official and a bit weightier. Yeah,
absolutely. And how was the recording process? The writing was done during the pandemic. Was it recorded during the pandemic? And did you have any issues with that, or were you just in a room, or did you send files over to each other? How did it work?
So we were basically watching the travel bans get lifted, because we have worked on all our recordings with a good friend, Jamie Elton, who's worked with some great bands, Tribulation being one of them. But he's based out in Sweden, so we were kind of waiting for him to be allowed in the country so that we could get on with recording, really. And then I've got rather a nice home studio, so we did the vast majority of the work there, and he just stayed with me. So that kind of made it a really nice, relaxed atmosphere, because we were just basically chilling at my house and then recording stuff. And it meant that the pressure was off a little bit because you're not having to go somewhere, not paying by the hour, all that sort of thing. It kind
of course,
made a really nice atmosphere, I think, and we'll definitely try and do it again as well that way around, I think.
Yeah. And what themes do you like to write about? What gets the creative juices flowing? What is it? What are you talking about?
So at the risk of sounding a little pretentious, the way we kind of view writing and especially lyrics and that, it's almost like it's tapping into that deeper part of you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of use of allegory. There's a lot of philosophy and kind of these archetypal constructs that people have in culture and throughout history. And it's using those to kind of explore the inner self and the human condition a bit, I guess, really.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's something I think that comes out when you make music. It's kind of you're tapping into a part of you that you maybe don't always reach.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's not just about me or about Jack. Everyone, when you consume a media, particularly music, you put your own spin on it. It's almost like being shown a bit of a mirror, but with a twist on it, if you know what I mean, to direct the audience. But then what they pull out of that is up to them. So
yeah, I get it. So, you like bringing in guests. You've had Henrik Palm, who's been on my show before. On this album, you've got Stig Miller and Sophie Lee Johansson. In an ideal world, who would you like as a guest on, say, your next record? Go big.
Well, it's a good question. I've actually spoken to someone pretty big. I don't really want to say their name.
Yeah, don't jinx anything.
Not to be that guy, but someone pretty big from a very, 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 very big metal band, I would say, in the scene. So yeah, to maybe do some spoken word again or something. And I don't know. They said they could be interested, so that's maybe a bit of a long shot. But I think personally, I know it's not goth at all, but I would love to have Rob Halford, or someone just do something. Being being a metal fan as well, but
it's quite accessible. Rob's quite accessible.
I'd hope so. I mean, just being, just there's something, the Black Country in me.
Yeah, of course.
It'd just be an amazing experience, I think, for me to have someone like that. Obviously, having Stig on this album, he's been a friend of mine for years in Bristol, and Amebix have been a band of like a favourite of mine since I was a kid. So that was a dream come true as well. Same with Henrik, known him for number of years.
He's great. He's great.
Through Insulted. Yeah, really cool guy. So I loved his music within Solitude, and so to get him to do a solo on a song was just mind blowing. So to keep that up, I think the pinnacle, the peak would be Halford just giving us a scream or even just a bit of spoken word, something.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. I think for me it'd be have to be Daniel Ash from Bauhaus, just because that to me is his guitar playing is just something that actually made me want to make this kind of music. So being able to get him to do something, it would just be next level. But as Jack said, we've been pretty lucky so far. So raising the bar again is kind of a tough.
You got to keep moving up. You got to keep pushing high. Reach for the stars, right? Literally. So tell us some history of the band. How did you guys form? Decide on the musical route, etc. How did it all come together? I believe was it 2016, something around then?
Yeah, so it goes back a bit further than that. Me and Gav were at university together. So,
which uni was that? Which one?
Aberystwyth.
Oh, right.
2008 we started,
right out there. Right, okay.
Yeah, so arse end of nowhere. Not really much else to do apart from drink.
For my listeners around the world, that's very far tip corner of Wales, right?
Yeah. You can't really get drugs there, or you can, but it's probably stuff you don't want, like heroin. So yeah, it was a lot of booze, and at the time, vegetarian, so eating a lot of cheese and tripping on that. And then so it just started as sharing riffs, and we bonded over metal mostly, extreme metal as well.
Yeah. Well, tell me because that was one of my questions down the line, but let's talk about that now. Where did that come? Where are your influences?
Influences. I guess
we'll go back to the history, but why are you just touching on the extreme metal and stuff? Let's just dip into that and come back to the history.
Yeah, so that's what I started playing. I was playing in black metal bands from the age of about 14.
Cool.
And and so, but then when you're listening to sort of that kind of music, you kind of quickly find out that a lot of those musicians are influenced by people in the sort of more left field, sort of like rock and alternative music, as well as they are. From like Bathory or anyone like that. It's so I think that was a big influence on us. That's how I started listening to bands like Sisters of Mercy, Fields and Nephilim. Bauhaus was through those bands. So and then going to goth clubs and going to clubs when I was a kid. stumbling into the goth room and being like, okay, this is pretty cool. So I'd say, maybe Gav can elucidate a bit more.
Because mine's the opposite way around, really. I've been brought up on a sort of a diet of Sisters of Mercy and Fields of the Nephilim right from when I was really young, and then slowly got into sort of heavier and heavier stuff, and then found sort of more sort of Black and Death stuff, and then met Jack right when we sort of both had similar tastes by that point, but just coming at them from the different way around. So I think in terms of overall influences, though, there is some of that more extreme metal stuff. There's definitely classic sort of post-punk and early goth bands, Killing Joke, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, that sort of stuff. But then also we're both really into like classic rock and metal, so Blue Oyster Cult, Judas Priest, Sabbath, all that kind of stuff. So the Doors, it's a bit of a big melting pot of things, really. And I think that's possibly key to the way things have panned out, is we've not gone down that route of, we want to sound like this genre, we want to sound like this band, we want to... It's not a tick box exercise for us almost. We've got to have this and we've got to have that because that's what everyone else does. It's very much we've just kind of, as I alluded to earlier in the kind of lyrical ideas, just written what's inside and it's just come out like this.
Yeah.
For me, it's all rock music as well, and that's what it's all about. Post-punk is still rock, really. As much as like post-metal is still metal, and that's still rock.
Yeah, of course.
It's all about rock and roll and sort of the rebellion for me of what that means. And
I'm sure seeing one of you guys wearing one of my favorite band's t-shirts is Danzig. I'm sure someone's got a Danzig t-shirt on in that band, right?
That's probably me. Yeah.
I'm sure probably you don't know your wardrobe. I've seen it. I've seen one of you wear a Danzig t-shirt. I'm pretty sure that.
That'd be me. Yeah.
So Drum Machine Rock, that's what your little your strap line is. Tell me about what happened and the reason you decided against a drummer. Because did you start this route and got a drummer, then went back to this, or did you have a drummer, then got rid of him and got a drum machine? How did it work? Like Dr. Avalanche?
Yeah, so we, as I said, we kind of just started just writing some riffs, and it wasn't anything too serious at the beginning. So didn't have a drummer, so programmed beats to start, as it were. Yeah. And then by the time we got enough tracks to do the first EP, we were like, well, what do we do? We had a friend who was really into that kind of music, who really liked the songs, so we were like, great, just get him to drum on it. This seemed like the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Then partially due to some injuries with his wrists, actually, he kind of had to take a step aside. So then we were left with the decision again of, well, what do we do? Then we got another drummer. Then in a way as well, that kind of held us back a little bit, because we're like, well, we've got to get back into the groove of working with this new person, which is why our releases have been that little bit at a time, because we were always kind of introducing someone new to the band.
Yeah.
So then after a while he left, and then we had another drummer, and then after a while they left. See a bit of a pattern here. By the time we got to the departure of drummer number 3, we were like, I can't keep doing this. We feel like we're taking a step back every time we take a step forwards. Yeah. And all the stuff that we've written it's always started out with programmed drums, because we've needed something to give us an idea of the song structure of where the riff goes. And obviously, as I'm sure you're aware, recording a drummer's a bit more of an undertaking than...
I'm a drummer myself, I know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't have the facilities to do that here. So we then just thought, what? I think actually, particularly with the songs that we had written for the album, it just felt like the right thing to do. So we went, right, let's just go back to the where it started. Let's just go with the drum machine. I'm fairly capable in terms of music production stuff. So it's not something we'd have had to have got skills from outside in to do. And it just made sense. And I think ultimately as well, for what the tracks were calling for, it allowed us to do those justice better, I think, on this particular album, at least anyway.
And you can have a smaller vehicle for touring, right?
Exactly. Yes. It does help a lot with that, yeah. It's partly a necessity, and partly, we started using it and we thought, actually, they've really stripped back, sort of streamlined drums. It kind of gives us more of a sound that's our own, I think, because the drummers that we had before, the last two were brilliant drummers. The first drum was great as well, but he was a bit more like a drum machine in a way anyway. The final two, they were quite flowery with what they were doing, and it was great drumming, but it just felt a bit too OTT.
Do you feel like do you miss that on stage, that drummer energy on stage when you play live?
I thought I would, because I've been playing with drummers since I was a kid. I think I did it initially, but now I kind of wouldn't. I wouldn't look back. This feels like the most natural thing I've done, right? Which is quite bizarre, really, because I was a bass player originally. That's what I was doing in black metal bands and metal bands.
Yeah.
So missing a part of the rhythm section. But no, there's just something else to it. I find it really enjoyable working to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can sort of work in and out of the beat, and yeah, I know, and I know that that's always going to be firm. But the energy on stage, no, we have a pretty good rig, a massive like speaker that we have behind us, so it feels like we've got a drummer with us.
Yeah,
nice.
And also I think partially the fact that just venues have come on a long way as well, and it's very rare now that you a completely anemic PA, which kind of takes that out of the equation. I'm sure they're still out there waiting for us now. I said that, but and also usually at the front of the stage as myself, Jack, and then Andy, our bass player, we all properly give it some. It's not the kind of a looking at your shoes band. It's very much more sort of give it some and go for it. So I think we kind of between us cover that on stage movement and energy anyway. So
got you.
Yeah, for us, it hasn't felt like a detriment.
Yeah. That's cool. Now, you mentioned Season of Mist. How did that signing occur? You know, the awesome label. How did it come about?
So it's actually through our booking agent, Zoltan. So if you're listening, Zoltan, thank you. Yeah, so we signed with him and Doomstar during the pandemic, which felt a bit bizarre to be signing to a booking agent while the world's closed. But
he wasn't busy either. He had to get some bands in.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and he was just like, right, if we're going to work together, I'd kind of, it's going to make my life easier if you're signed. And we were like, great, okay, thank you for that. And so I think initially it was going to be maybe a few different labels, but then it just happened to be Season. I think Michael at Season is the guy that runs it. He heard the demos that we've been working on in lockdown, and he just loved it, I think. So yeah, it was a man of few words, at least by email, but it was very encouraging. Yeah. So yeah, he was just like, yeah, I love it. So we went from there. I mean, I've been buying Season of Mist records since from a very young age.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, brilliant label.
So it feels pretty special. Good. And I've forgotten about it now in a way, but I mean, it's every so often, because we're due to get our copies of the album on Monday. They've been shipped from Season.
Nice.
And it will be quite bizarre, I think, quite surreal holding it in my hand, and this because their spines are the same on every release, and these little details, and it'll be on the shelf with the rest of my Season of Mist collection. Be like, okay, that's really fun. Cool. Yeah. Well, and great for them to sort of take a punt a bit on something that isn't extreme metal,
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Now, talk about recognition. You're getting amazing recognition on the likes of like BBC Radio 1, Kerrang, and more. Have you noticed a higher intake of interest from these features? It must have been cool to read Kerrang saying that, you're sitting on one of the coolest albums of 2023. You must have seen an intake in your, Instagram figures or people contacting you, etc.
Yeah, so it's a bit bizarre because again, Kerrang's a magazine I remember buying when I was like 13, and then to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, too right.
Yeah, we've done some things for Metal Hammer that will be coming out in the near future, and then we've had a feature in like a big Italian mag and all sorts of stuff. It is a little bit odd, but I think none of that's quite as weird as when I was in a kind of like an 80s night recently, and I had 3 separate people. I have no idea who they are. All come up to me and say, "Oh, the single's class. Yeah, I really like it. Look, can't wait for the album." That was even more bizarre.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah, we've definitely seen more interest, more recognition. I mean, the videos we've put out have done way better than stuff we've done in the past, and the comments have all been super positive as well. So that being said, the internet is what it is, and there's so much stuff out there. It always feels like there's an element of screaming into the void a bit. So that's why when it's people in real life that come up to you and say things, that feels way more real than the numbers on the screen.
Yeah, or like with Radio 1, getting a play on that. And it's just that something like, speaking to yourself, it's much nicer to do these things than write like, a 2,000 word essay for a mag or whatever. But it's all still great. Yeah, it's and it has helped. I think it's just getting your music heard. That's the trickiest thing because you're one of a great many bands out there at the minute. Yeah, and it's just, and we're confident if people hear us, they might see something in it. But it's getting it heard initially. That's the trick. But yeah,
well, you're doing the right thing, or the people behind you are doing the right thing. Now, live-wise, what's on the agenda for this year? You must have a stacked year coming up.
Well, we do, but we can't talk about any of it. Sorry to be
that's all right.
People. No, we've got some stuff at the end of the year which we're super excited about in terms of a tour with a band that I think is a really good fit for us and one that we've liked right from when they got going. Awesome. So yeah, that'll be really fun. And then we've got a few festivals in the works as well. I kind of get the feeling that next year might almost be the big one for us because obviously the album's just coming out now. Loads of festivals are booking for next year now.
Yeah.
So we've got Dominion Festival coming up in the north of England. We'll be on the same bill as Sodom and Orange Goblin, so that's quite fun.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome.
Nice mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're opening up that on the main stage, which should be fun. Then the rest is some European festivals, hopefully one or two, maybe a few more. Yeah. So again, Zoltan, if you're listening,
Get on it. Yeah.
yeah, no, so yeah, and then this thing at the end of the year should be a European tour, hopefully, maybe some UK dates with a
Amazing.
bigger headliner above us. So yeah, hopefully that'll
Look
be
forward for that. So, who is your fan base, by the way? Who shows up to your shows? What's a typical fan? With your influences and your sound, where do the fans come from? What kind of genre? Is it a mixed bag? Is it a melting pot?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's funny because we kind of got asked a question a little bit like this, but from the other way round almost recently in a written interview, and they said, do genres play a factor in an audience anymore? And I think with the internet and everything being so accessible, it's way less than it was, and you can kind of see that in our audience. You've got people who've kind of, as a bit with Jack's story, they've clearly come from that extreme metal background and then broadened out into sort of all sorts, whether it's post-punk, goth, industrial. So there's definitely a core crew of that who've been on that kind of similar journey. And then there's always a little contingent of old school goths who were clearly buying Hairspray in the early 80s and are still at it. And then just a kind of bit of a mixed bag of the kind of, I guess you could label them as like hipsters, but like just, all in black. Can't really tell from the look what kind of music they will be into day to day, but they're there for us,
that's good.
Really nice. So I think also partially the sort of venues and places we've played have played a bit of a factor in that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now, obviously, without letting on with this ideal touring partner, it could be at the end of the year. One of my questions was going to be, who would be your ideal touring partner? Because I saw that you played with King Dude back in London a while back. That would be, he's awesome. I mean, that kind of partnership would be great. But who would be your ideal touring partner be?
I don't know if there's an ideal one. I mean, there's probably a number of bands that would
fit.
we'd like to play with. There's probably an element of not wanting to meet your heroes. So there's probably a few of the bands that you hear about, from the old school and the kind of big names in the scene. It might be a little bit better not to play with them. I don't know, but there's bands that we Tribulation, that, as Gav mentioned, would be
Love
great.
Tribulation.
So. Yeah, because obviously we've got the connection through Jamie when they came through London with Watain on the recent tour.
Yeah, I saw them on that as well. Did you see them?
Yeah, so got to because Jamie was doing sound for that tour. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good night. Spent the night with them, and had far too many drinks with a few of them. And it was made a bit of a connection there. They're fans of Naut, so
that would be great. I can see that. I was going to mention that myself. Actually, I could see you two together.
Yeah, I think in terms of bands in the scene, it'd be someone like that, really. But I mean. Yeah, I mean, who knows? We could maybe support a more extreme metal band. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think. But then you got bands like Killing Joke, and Fields and Nephilim would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty much. That would be a dream come true.
Cover a lot of bases, you guys. You can really spread out.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's a blessing and a curse, I think, in some ways. Yeah. But no, I think you're right though. It has a potential to fit on quite a few diverse bills. Yeah.
What's on the bucket list? What do you want to achieve from this? What would be the one thing that you go, right, we've done that now. That's like the biggest tick in my head, one step at a time. But what would it be?
I think, to be honest, I think once we've got that first tour under our belt, that's maybe with a decent band, I say, around Europe, that's not necessarily bucket list, but that feels like it'll open the door to all of the stuff you really go, right, now I really want to do this, really want to do that. For me, an absolute goal would be, you know what, we've done a headline tour around Europe and every venue, there might be massive, 150, 250 caps, something like that, and all of them have been well attended. Like that, I think for me will be when I feel like I feel comfortable with where we are now. Because it's that kind of that borderline, I guess, isn't it, between, well, have you made it or not? It's such a vague term, but for me, the definition of it is, you could go and say, I'm going to play in Barcelona, I'm going to go and play in Rome, I'm going to go and play in Gothenburg, and you can guarantee the crowd. That would be the dream, I think.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite element of being in a band? Is it the writing, the recording, the releasing, or the shows? Which is it? What do you do it for?
I think for me, it's just a whole process. Seeing that idea that you had when you sat up in my studio dicking about with stuff, and then suddenly maybe 6 months later that's being played in front of hundreds of people
Yeah.
Whether that's, on a radio show or in a club or live on stage, seeing that full sort of journey that it's gone through, that I think is the bit that fascinates me.
Yeah.
And just the bond that you have that comes out in different ways. Like, so we've spent today writing together for album 2, and there's just something about that, the magic that I think we have when we get together, and just those moments where you write something, you look at each other and go, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
So there's those, but then those moments, but then it also comes out on stage when we get to share it with a couple of other people in the band, and it's it used to be, I used to be all about the live show, and then studio was a bit like whatever, but that was with previous bands. But it's everything now. I love it.
And it's even those moments where we might have sat up there and written something and gone, "Man, that's pretty tasty," and then you listen to it back on an album and you record it and go, "That's still pretty damn good," and then you play it live and people in the audience go, "That's pretty damn good." It's that whole thing and that connection between the creators, then the performers, and then the listeners as well. It's there's a certain magic to that, I think.
Brilliant. Now, a couple of personality questions before we end it for the night. What's one thing you think everyone should try once?
Oh, God. I'm not... how PG is the radio show?
Come on.
No, I think, to be honest, it might sound a little bit wishy-washy, but it's just really pushing yourself, just going, right, what's the best thing that I can do that I've always wanted to try and do? Just don't make excuses. Don't block yourself down. There's some people in my family that I kind of feel have held themselves back all their life, and I've seen that. I thought, man, don't do that. Whatever it is, one thing you should try is try. It's a bit of a pop-out answer maybe, but I think that's it for me.
Have ideas above your station, and that's it. Yeah, definitely. It's
like it.
Growing up in the Black Country in the Midlands, and even the history of heavy metal, which came out 30 years ago, wasn't me.
Absolutely.
That was very integral to their music, and it's what I've taken with me. It's not to be stuck in your cast or in your in your station. That it's if you've got something you want to achieve, do it before you regret it. So
Now, if you thought that was a difficult question, I've got another one for you. If you could know the truth to one question, what would it be?
Yeah, man, you're going out for all the fun.
Yeah,
I'm wishing that we didn't put in some of those interviews that we like philosophy. I don't know. So I think all the big questions that people might ask themselves, they're probably better off not knowing the answer to, which is something I've kind of thought myself when,
that's good. I like that
idea. People are, when am I going to meet the one, or what's the end of my life going to be like? All that, you're better off not knowing. So maybe it would be something more like, what the hell do we have to do to get our music seen by enough people on Facebook, and I don't have to pay for the ads, or something like that?
Yeah. I had Amigo the Devil on here a while ago, and he said his truth to one question was, why do we have lobsters? It was a quite random one, but I quite understand why. I don't understand why we've got lobsters, but it was a good.
See, that's the right kind of thing, isn't it? None of this "what's the meaning of life" nonsense. You might depress yourself.
Why have we got lobsters? Why?
What's a lentil? What actually is that?
You just keep going on this. Okay, last one. What's the most used emoji in your phones?
Man, I don't really use them very much.
Oh, come on, emojis. Come on, emojis. Pictures speak 1,000 words.
Lately, it's probably the little Italian hand that
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm doing it now as we're talking.
Yeah,
I don't know
that or the
house key that.
Oh, the house key. Okay, finally, describe the band in 3 words.
Drum machine rock.
Yeah, straight in. It's already there.
Yeah.
Gavin,
can you tell my day job's in marketing? I know what the tagline.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for joining on the show tonight. Expecting a big future for you guys. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Well, cheers for having us.
Yeah, it's great.